The heavenly principles are dead. Quite the outlandish statement, I must admit, but when you consider the current state of affairs in Teyvat, one cannot help but feel obligated to explore all the possible avenues in regards to the biggest question in Genshin Impact right now: where are the heavenly principles? The supposed greater, albeit necessary, evil in this world that miHoyo is quickly ramping up to be the final boss has not made an appearance since the Cataclysm 500 years ago. Barring some lost records, this isn't the first time Celestia has gone quiet, but this is certainly the most unusual when you consider Nahida's conversation with the Doctor.
What if I were to destroy the Gnosis now and awaken the heavenly principles?
Awaken the heavenly principles? Do you think that's really possible?
The heavenly principles have been silent for many years, but the Gnosis are symbols of their control over Teyvat and all the laws. Will the destruction of a Gnosis attract the attention of the heavenly principles? And if so, how do the Fatui plan to deal with the consequences?
Granted, she admitted this was a bluff, but would go on to clarify her reasoning behind this gamble.
I'm sure you remember the entity that changed your fate, the heavenly principles. In fact, the heavenly principles has been quiet since the Conria disaster 500 years ago. I used this point as leverage against the Doctor. I told him that the heavenly principles may be awakened if I destroy the Gnosis. Although it's just a bluff, he still fell for it. I assumed that the heavenly principles wouldn't just stand by and let such extensive damage to its laws take place.
Putting aside how she'd even be able to destroy the Gnosis, it's lucky Dottore fell for this gamble, as we can now reason Nahida's assumption was wrong. Had she destroyed the Gnosis, causing extensive damage to Celestia's laws, they probably still would not have awakened. We know this because it is in essence what Focalors did.
But only power of this magnitude could hope to destroy the Hydro Archon's divine throne, shaking the rules established by Celestia, and breaking through the institution that is the Seven.
Focalors not only permanently took the Hydro Archon position off the board, but also committed what may as well be tantamount to subversion by returning the authority of Hydro to a sovereign. And yet, even still, Celestia remains quiet, seemingly unbothered by contemporary Teyvat, a place that currently has its first ever prince/princess of the Abyss, a place that has just permanently lost one of the Seven, a place that now has its first fully fledged dragon sovereign since the first Eon. And yet, silent. How could this be? Could it really be that they're dead? I don't think so, at least not entirely. When last we saw the heavenly principles directly, it was shortly after the siblings had decided to leave Teyvat, seeing that it is currently embroiled in a bloody cataclysm. Just as the siblings were about to set off, however, their path was blocked by the one who calls herself the Sustainer of Heavenly Principles. She 1v2s them with ease, before inexplicably trapping them in Teyvat while sealing away their powers. Hold on to this thought, by the way, because we now might know why she trapped them in Teyvat, and it is a dark fucking reason. In the throne that hath lie in the firmament, they are up to no good. No good at all. This cutscene takes place in the midst of the Conrian disaster, yet Celestia looks completely unaffected, and also the Sustainer looks hot. The Sustainer is especially noteworthy due to the fact that she was seemingly at ground zero, as we see she cubed up the place pretty good. Yeah, she cubed up the place. I don't know what to call that attack. It's the only real remnant of Celestia's actions during the last 500 years, and it comes from her. Given her purported title, however, it would make sense if she was nothing more than the strong arm of the heavenly principles, acting as an enforcer for when things go awry. It stands to reason then that if she's merely an enforcer, then she's doing so at the behest of something else. That thing is most likely the Primordial One, the progenitor god of Teyvat's named Fanes. The androgynous being arrived to Teyvat alone before creating the 4 shining shades of itself and defeating the 7 sovereigns. After their victory, Fanes created the human realm and the heavenly realm, also known as Celestia. I believe it is Fanes and the 4 shades that constitute the will of the heavenly principles, which as an entity is so powerful that they can control fate itself. They control everything in this world and have molded it in such a way that there wasn't anything in it that can threaten them. Notice I used the past tense for the latter part of that phrase because while there was once a time where the heavenly principles and Fanes in particular could be thought of as omniscient, omnipotent, and omnicompetent, that was long ago. And while it seems as if no power from this world can harm them, we now know that a power from beyond this world most certainly has an effect. Fanes in particular had its functions ruined and was severely wounded following the War of Vengeance, so much so that it necessitated the Gnosis to be made so as to keep the old world from rising once more. It's worth pointing out that although Fanes was severely wounded, it's not like it became a dumb, deaf quadriplegic, as after the war Fanes casted down the Divine Nails to suppress the abyssal power that had corrupted Teyvat. So this second War of Vengeance could be why Celestia has a less than favorable position on Forbidden Knowledge, and why they immediately went to DEFCON 1 on Khaenri'ah. It could be that Abyssal Corruption and Forbidden Knowledge are outliers in their model of Teyvat that they cannot account for due to their otherworldly nature, and as such when it surges into Teyvat, the Heavenly Principles act quickly and without remorse, and even resort to exemplary punishment to get their point across. But if then this is the only thing that could hope to threaten them, it makes sense why the Arbiters of Fate don't respond to the current situation of Teyvat. If the idea that Teyvat is in a samsara is correct, there's one important takeaway from it, and that's that Teyvat is inherently dangerous to Outlanders. The sibling says as much.
Outlanders do not belong in this world.
And the reason for this could be tied into why the Sustainer trapped the two Outlanders in Teyvat. Just as with the third Descender, their bodies are being harvested to create Gnosis for the next cycle. And as such, it may have already happened to the sibling who was shortly after born again in Teyvat explaining her Irminsul records. This could be what this world has done to the sibling that the Traveler himself asks. So even if the current cycle Gnosis are being used against the Heavenly Principles, they may soon be rendered obsolete if a new cycle of Samsara is upon us. Again, this is if the idea that Teyvat is in a Samsara is in fact real. Moving on, earlier I stated that I believe the Heavenly Principles to be Fanes and the Four Shades. So far we've only talked about 2 of the 5 beings that make it up, but where are the other 3? The remaining 3 shades, assuming the Sustainer is a shade, are Istaroth the god of time and wind, an unnamed female shade responsible for creating life, and one final shade that we know absolutely nothing about. Istaroth was once worshipped in both Mondstadt and Enkanomiya, but knowledge of her and her existence has been lost to time. Surely Venti's second story quest is going to drop a big lore bomb about her, and that's why they have not done it yet. Surely, guys. But until then, her current whereabouts are unknown. The Shade of Life was responsible for helping Fanes to create life in Teyvat, and she even made Egeria, but her current whereabouts are unknown. And finally, the Mystery Shade is, well, a mystery. I don't believe any of them to be dead, but I mean, personally speaking, I wouldn't be surprised if Fanes was dead, and it's literally just the angels running heaven right now. Not because I have anything to back this claim, but because it reminds me of a creepypasta I once read about years ago, and it just really reminds me of this story. In any case, as for the question, where are the Heavenly Principles? I think it'd be foolish to say they aren't aware of what's going on in Teyvat. I just don't think they see it as a threat. And they will never see it as a threat. As we now know, the Heavenly Principles can be fooled, but that's only in places where their eyes do not fall. All the major power moves in Teyvat have been happening out in the open, and they've yet to respond. If rounding up the Gnosis spelled doom for them, I believe they already would have stepped in, but I don't think they feel obligated to do anything so long as the power from beyond this world stays beyond this world.